Hello, Internet. Welcome back to the Experimental Cataclysm. If you're new here, this is the show where we talk about updates that have come to the experimental version of Cataclysm Dark Days Ahead over the last couple of weeks. And we actually had some big news this week. And that's because we've moved into content freeze. So, for those of you who've never lived through a stable release before, basically what happens is the dev team, gradually tapers off incoming new content stuff until such a time that they're ready for the stable release. And this starts with a feature freeze, which is like, I don't know, like pockets. The pocket system would be an example of a feature, or the weariness system, proficiencies, things like that. Those are the things that are most game breaking, right? When we get those things implemented, like pockets broke quite a lot of things that needed a lot of work. Proficiencies, were kind of in a weird place at first, and have been worked on. And so features tend to be the things that break the game the most, introduce the most bugs, things like that. So that's the first thing to go. Then they move on to content freeze, which means there's no new content. So new locations, new creatures, new items, things like that. These are less likely to break the game, but are still possible. We had, let's say you add a new creature to the game. Maybe they spawn too frequently. Maybe they're too powerful. They need to be nerfed. That can break the game and would be bad for a stable release. So they gradually taper off new content so that nothing breaks the game, and then they'll start moving into some of these other things that don't really affect us as players, but as the dev team, this is the process that they take moving towards a stable release. So we've entered content freeze, and what that means is that pretty much nothing is going to be added to the game, right? Most new locations, new monsters, new features, all that stuff is on hold until after the stable release. Last year, I did go back and look. It took about 2.5 months from the time I stopped doing the show until we had the actual release and we returned to the show. So I'm not sure when exactly we can expect 0.F, but I'm guessing in the next couple of months or so, we will probably see a release. In fact, there's a project page. I will link both the issue that we were just looking at as well as the project page in the description down below if you're interested in looking. It looks like they've mostly cleared things up. And what they'll be focused on now is bug fixes and dealing with these blockers. And basically a blocker is just something that really needs to be resolved before they move on to 0.F. So doesn't look like there are very many left, which means that they're probably going to start moving towards the stable release, which is good news for those of you who play stable. And for those of us that play experimental, it's really just about going on hiatus. And on that note, let's talk about the future of this show. So last year when we had 0. Ellison released, I took a break because there was no new content coming in. And most of what I talk about on this show are new mechanics and new content. And we're not going to be getting those things over the next couple of weeks. So probably this show will go on hiatus and we will return once content starts to flow again. So I know a lot of you make a point of coming out here every other week and have made a habit of it. It stinks from a YouTube perspective to lose that those views and to lose that kind of regularity with your audience, but there's really not going to be much for us to talk about. In fact, this week with old content, I still did not have very much to talk about. The other thing I would mention is that the change logs are also on hold, so if you were interested in following the bug fixes and things like that, you will have to look at them manually through GitHub, or I guess this is Jenkins, right? You can look through these lists, of course. The launcher displays this information as well if you're interested. But yeah, so mostly there's not going to be anything. And also worth noting, since there's no change logs, that is generally what I use to make this show. So instead I had to look through the changes manually. So I may have missed some things. So please don't hate me. Now let's get into the show, shall we? Actually, all we have left to do now is figure out what 0.F is going to be called. Like from a player perspective, we have no impact obviously on the development and whether they fix bugs or not. So all we can do now is speculate wildly on what 0.F will be called. Of course, 0.E was 0. Ellison. Feel free to leave me a comment down below what you think 0.F should be named. My suggestion would be 0. Farnsworth. Why not? For Professor Farnsworth. Okay, let's get into the show. First, from another simulacrum, we got a weariness sidebar display. This is really great. This is something that, Sim has been working on for a little bit, or maybe they were done with it and it just didn't get merged until recently. But we have a new sidebar section where it displays our current weariness. This not only tells you what state of weariness you're in, but it shows you a transition bar. So you will have an idea of how close you are to the next level of weariness, which is really really nice. It's a lot better than opening the at menu all the time, and I do like having it. I will say that when I got into the game, it was located at the bottom of my sidebar. I don't know if that's because I previously had sidebar settings or if that is just the new default location. But you can change that in your sidebar settings, which is the one of the curly bracket keys. I'm not sure. I think it's the closing curly bracket or curly brace. I don't know. I'll put a big one on the screen here so you can see what I'm talking about. But you're able to relocate that in your sidebar or remove it if it's something that you don't want cluttering up your display. I do think it being at the bottom is a terrible idea. I moved it up, but I'm guessing that's just because I previously had sidebar settings. And we can see here a GIF of that example. As the transition decreases, you're getting closer and closer to the next level of weariness. You can see as this depletes, it will shift to the next level. And not only that, but it shows you the percentage of like the multiplier that's attached to your attack speed and things like that. So this is just a really, really nice quality of life. I'm super glad that this was added. And it's really good that they got this in before 0.f release because people would inevitably be frustrated. I mean, just like we were over the last several weeks of not really understanding weariness. This makes it much more transparent, much easier to understand. And I think that's a really, really good change. And in addition to that, we also got a weariness message change. This is from another simulacrum as well, and it basically just slows down the rate at which you would get a message in your sidebar saying, oh, you're becoming weary, or oh, you're feeling a little more rested. I did notice in playing over the last, month, I've noticed they were very frequent. Oftentimes, you would do a specific action, and by the time you were finished, you would get 6 messages, it seemed like. Maybe that was my imagination, but it did seem to pop up just walking from one place to another. I would get multiple messages. So it's cool to see that tamped down as well because I do think that was a bit too much. Next, from Night, we have a new island prison layout. So I'm not going to scroll down because it shows pictures of the location. Trying to go a little light on the spoilers. We do also have spoiler monsters later in the show, so just to put that out there. But it's a new layout of the island prison. There really only was that one layout previously, and so Knight has gone in. Knight is the person who initially implemented the island prison, and they've changed the layout quite a bit. It's pretty different. There's also some different enemies, different things that you're going to find there that would not be present in the original layout. I do believe that someone streamed this already. Someone streamed playing the new prison layout. And based on that stream, Knight did go in and tweak the island prison. So I'm not sure what all got changed, but it is something that they've been minding a little bit to make improvements. And the same thing was true when I initially did the Prison Escape series on my channel. Knight watched that, took a lot of my feedback, and then implemented it into the game. And I really respect when people do stuff like that because I think that it's really easy when you create something to be very like high and mighty, like, oh, this is my location, it's perfect. And when people can see others engage with it and make changes based on feedback, I think that's something that's worthy of respect. So I just wanted to shout that out a little bit. I don't know who the streamer was that played it, but apparently there were some things that needed tweaking. So I really respect that. I think it's really cool when they accept feedback and make changes based on player input, because obviously as a dev member, you have your own desires for what you want in the game, but also the player's feedback does actually matter. So yeah, I thought that was really cool. And yeah, new prison layout, island prison layout, not just the prison. Next, from Saichi, we have add speed to monster description. Love this change. Basically now when you look at a monster and get its description, you will see a line displaying how fast that creature is. Here it says, this deer is much faster than you. Here we have a feral human. It's about the same speed. Zombie is slower. Crawling zombie is basically immobile. And then the debug monster is in fact immobile. And then, yeah, I really like this. I think that this is a fantastic addition. Not only because it gives you an idea of how fast a creature is, which is something I think that those of us who are experienced with the game, we probably take for granted that we, know all the monsters and we know kind of what their speed is and that sort of stuff. It's just really good for like newer players who would have no idea. And more importantly, and what I think is really great about this is that they didn't just slap a number on it. They didn't just say, oh, it's 100 moves. It has 100 moves or whatever. It actually is a vague representation that a player would get the idea of. So in real life, if you look at a creature, you get the idea. Is it faster than me? Is it slower than me? Is it about the same speed? That's about the extent of your knowledge as a human being. You wouldn't say, oh, that deer over there, it moves at so many feet per second exactly. And you wouldn't have that knowledge. It would be a vague understanding of what speed is. So I really like that they went vague with it instead of making it a extremely specific, number there. I do think we do other things like that where we give very specific numbers. I'm a big fan of the vague information. So, yeah, I like that. Really not much to say about it. Just think it's a really cool change. Next, also from Night, we got a tweak to the zombie pull metal attack that we have with the zombie technician. Also with the, what's the CBM called? Does it say anywhere? Electromagnet CBM? Is that what it's called? Okay, whatever. But that particular special attack that pulls a metal item from your hands, previously it would just teleport to wherever the monster was standing. Now it actually becomes a projectile. So let's say zombie technician yanks your short sword out of your hands and there's a zombie between you and it. The short sword could impact the zombie in between you and deal damage, which I think is really, really neat. I don't know what kind of force is put behind this particular CBM. I think this is one of the more sci-fi CBMs. I don't know how you project a magnetic field over such a great distance. I really have no idea. So I don't know what the damage would be like, and I don't know if it's based on the weapon, but it's a pretty neat idea, and I thought this was pretty cool, so I thought I would shout it out. Now, the next change that we're going to talk about is a bit spoilery, so if you don't want to get spoiled on new creatures, don't watch this next section. I will say it's not particularly fancy, or whatever, but we are going to talk about them kind of in the abstract. So yeah, there was your warning. Okay, so also from Night, because of the update to the island prison and things, they went through and made some updates to prisoner zombies, specifically adding several more of them. So we now have zombie prisoners that are fat, tough, and brute variants of the prisoners, which I think is cool. I'm a big fan of diversity, even when it's just cosmetic. So, like, even if this was exactly identical to a fat zombie, I'm actually pretty okay with having a prisoner version of that creature because that's a specific variant that would only appear in certain locations and it would build the flavor of the world, things like that. So for the most part, when it comes to monsters, at least I am okay with diversity, even if they're vaguely identical. I actually hate that when it's like an item or like last time, I think we talked about the back seats being virtually identical, and it just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. When it comes to monsters, I do think making them more diverse just for the purposes of flavor is acceptable. Like we've talked many times, I think there should be like cashier zombies and, like just random zombies like, oh, this is a, lumberjack zombie or fast food zombie, that kind of stuff, just to kind of build up a little bit of flavor. I know that's not super popular, but that's something I think would be cool. I also wish zombies were broken down by gender, but that's just me. I wish it would identify gender. That way I could say when I'm playing, oh, this is a female, whatever, this is a male, whatever, instead of never knowing what to call a zombie on stream or whatever. But anyway, that's just a minor complaint. So we got some new prisoner zombie variants, which is pretty cool, and I'm a big fan. And yeah, internet, that's going to be a wrap on the show. I do think in 2 weeks I will look and see if there's anything substantial that I want to talk about. But you should probably expect that we're not going to have this show anymore until the next stable release, and then content starts to flow again. That could be in a couple weeks. That could be 3 months from now. So, or longer, I don't know. So just be prepared for that. And then as a final word, I would say that, like tonight, I'm expecting, at this point, it's like 9 to 15 inches of snow or something like that. I know I'm not the only person dealing with that right now. I know a lot of people are dealing with a lot of snow and cold temperatures. Just wanted to say, everybody stay warm, stay safe. I don't know how much snow we're going to get. I got to drive like 90 miles tonight in presumably like between 3 inches and 1.5 feet, depending on when it starts snowing. So just everybody stay safe. Don't go anywhere if you don't have to. Stay warm. Take care of yourselves. Look after your family and stay well over the next few weeks or months while I'm absent. Hopefully everyone is doing all right. So that's it for me. Thank you for watching. Of course, thank you always for the support. And we'll be back to talk about more changes when they start to happen again.